Hi everyone, my name is Camille Leak. My pronouns are she and her, and I am a diversity, inclusion, and equity practitioner. Today I want to talk to you about what it means to center diversity, equity, and inclusion when it comes to creating your teams and creating products and services for your customers. To give you a little bit of background about me, I have been a diversity, equity, and inclusion practitioner for the last 4 years, working with different organizations to help them cultivate more diverse, inclusive, and equitable environments. But before becoming a diversity, equity, and inclusion practitioner, I actually spent the majority of my career in market research. So I worked with a lot of different companies and clients to help them understand what does it mean to be relevant to an increasingly diverse marketplace? How do you authentically evolve your messaging, your branding, and your products and your services to make sure you stay relevant to the diversifying needs and concerns of a changing marketplace? And from that role within market research, I then parlayed into my diversity, equity, and inclusion practitioner role. And I absolutely adore it. As such, I tell people my job is to do two things when I come into a space as a diversity, equity, and inclusion practitioner. One is to help you understand how diversity, inclusion, and equity impact your bottom line. Frankly, how does it help you make money? Because it most certainly does. When we choose not to invest in diversity, inclusion, and equity, we're leaving money on the table. Secondly, my job is to make you really, really uncomfortable. Because if we're not uncomfortable, we're not doing the work. We're not progressing along our journey. So that's a little bit about me and how I approach this space. As a startup, if you are wanting to center diversity, equity, and inclusion in your team and in your engagement with your customers, first and foremost, we have to know exactly what does diversity, inclusion, and equity mean. So let's take it back to the beginning. What is diversity? Diversity is simply our representation. It is all the things that make us different from one another. Now, what's inclusion? Inclusion is all about belonging. It is the intentional behaviors each and every one of us make to ensure that other people feel heard, seen, and valued, even though they may be different. Now, studies have shown that organizations that are both diverse and inclusive actually see a beneficial environment. They see higher levels of creativity, productivity, loyalty, and innovation. Organizations that are more diverse are able to outperform their more homogeneous counterparts because they're able to bring more ideas to the table. And so they have a wider plethora of potential solutions to choose from compared to a more homogeneous group. Similarly, organizations that are inclusive see higher levels of productivity because when we have to hide pieces of our identity, when we have to cover who we are, that takes a lot of work. It takes mental energy, it takes emotional energy. In some cases, it even takes physical energy. But when we're working somewhere where we don't have to worry about hiding those pieces of our identity, where does all that energy now go? Back into our work. So we understand the business case for both diversity and inclusion. Now, research has also shown that organizations that are only diverse but don't really make the effort to be inclusive actually see a detrimental environment. In these environments, we see higher levels of stress, turnover, anxiety, depression, even conflict. So the unfortunate reality is that if you're not willing to make the effort to be inclusive, you're actually better off not being diverse. Now, that brings us to equity. Equity is all about fairness. It simply means that we are making the effort to make sure that we are providing the unique opportunities, the unique tools, the unique resources to individuals. Simply said, equity takes into account the fact that we all don't start from the same starting point. And so we want to keep in mind that we all start from different places, the idea that we have different privileges and how that impacts our experiences and therefore how it impacts our needs and our concerns. As a startup, if you keep that in mind, if you keep in mind what diversity means, what inclusion means, and what equity means, it can have a great impact on how you not only engage with your customers, but also how you engage with your teams. If it is your intent to cultivate diverse, inclusive, and equitable environments, it's critical that you invest in humility, empathy, and vulnerability. We simply don't know what we don't know. That is to say, we all have our blind spots. We all have our own lived experiences. And so in order to make sure that, for example, we're providing a wide array of resources or a wide array of services and products that benefit different types of people, we need to make sure that we have those different types of people in our network. That may be on our team. That may be different types of people who we partner with on different projects. This also means different types of customers. For example, oftentimes when we do market research, we can have a tendency to only research among a very specific segment. And so we may still have blind spots about potential opportunities that could be out there, particularly for underserved customers. How could the needs and concerns of underserved customers provide you an opportunity to innovate? That is, how could you potentially capitalize on that by answering or providing for the needs that other marketers and other companies haven't? When it comes to really cultivating an inclusive and equitable and diverse team, it takes intention. It takes effort. I tell people all the time, being diverse or being inclusive or being equitable isn't complex, but it is hard. It's sort of like trying to lose weight. Many of us have tried to do it. We know exactly what we need to do, right? Eat less, exercise more. It's that simple. But no, it's so hard. Why is it hard? Because it requires a mindset shift. It requires us to be intentional. It requires us to be accountable. It requires us to be specific. It requires us to be actionable. Being diverse, being inclusive, being equitable is the exact same thing. We have to be intentional. We have to be specific. We have to be actionable, and we have to hold ourselves accountable. So if it is your desire to, for example, cultivate a more diverse network, what are you going to do to expose yourself to different types of people? What are you going to do to proactively insert yourself into networks that maybe you hadn't considered before? Similarly, if we're thinking about trying to provide different types of products and services that are more equitable, what intentional effort are you going to take to understand the needs and concerns of different types of potential customers, of different types and potential students? What are the different needs and concerns that some students, particularly underserved students, have, and they haven't been met? That represents an opportunity for you. Again, just remember, if it is your desire to truly be diverse, equitable, and inclusive, choose to invest in humility, empathy, and vulnerability, and be intentional about challenging your own objectivity and being aware of who is and who isn't in your current network. I hope you found this helpful, and I hope this will help you along your journey as you provide different types of products and services that are so very needed. Thank you.